Then I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Senator Brooks. Here. Senator Canizaro. Here. Senator Dennis. Senator Dennis. Senator
Here.
Darrell Loop. Senator Goycochea. Senator Hammond. Senator Kiekefer.
Here.
Senator Ratty. Here. Senator Severs Gansert. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Here.
Assemblyman Frierson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdigi. Here. Assemblyman Levitt. Here. Assemblywoman Miller. Here. Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Here.
Assemblywoman Peters. Here. Assemblyman Roberts.
Here.
Assemblywoman Titus. Here. Assemblywoman Tolles. Assemblyman Watts. Here. Chair Carlton.
And I am here. Thank you very much. We're here today, joint meeting, Committee on Finance, Assembly Committee on Ways and Means for some budget closings this morning. So with that, I believe we can go ahead and get opened up. Everyone's ready. I'll invite Mr. Hartz to the table. And we will start with the first budget account, Governor's Office, Office of New Americans. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, good morning. For the record, Alex Hartz, Fiscal Analysis Division. The budget I will be presenting to you is the Office for New Americans. That begins on page 3 of your closing packet. The committees may recall this budget was heard on March 10th and is now being brought back to you for closing. There is, beginning on page 4, is the major closing issue. There is one major closing issue. As you may recall, the governor recommends the elimination of private grant funding that the program had received, and then restoration of funding through general fund appropriations in both years of the biennium. On January 27th of this year, the Interim Finance Committee approved the second year of private grant funding that the program received. This then creates the scenario where the program does not need either to have the grant funding eliminated, nor does it need the general fund appropriations. So if you would turn to page 5 of your closing packet, you will recall that there was a table included in the budget highlight that laid out the scenario for you in such that based upon having sufficient additional grant funding from the first year left over, and then the addition of the second year grant funding, the program will have more than enough funding to cover the first year of the biennium. Therefore, on page 5, staff is recommending several technical adjustments. The first is to add the full amount of the year 2 grant award to the base budget. Secondly, reverse the first year of Decision Unit E490, which otherwise eliminates the grant funding in both years of the biennium. Third, eliminate the first year of Decision Unit E225, which otherwise recommends the addition of general fund appropriations in both years of the biennium. If the committees approve these technical adjustments, staff would also recommend that the committee may wish to consider issuing a letter of intent to the agency directing that in the event that an unexpended balance in year 2 grant funds is available in fiscal year 23, which is shown in the table as projected to be $8,644. The agency should reserve for reversion an equal amount of the fiscal year 2023 general fund appropriations. Likewise, if the Office of New Americans is successful in obtaining a year 3 grant award, the office should also reserve for reversion general fund appropriations based upon the effective date of the year 3 grant budget period. Again, that is assuming if the committee approves the technical adjustments recommended by staff as a result of receiving that Year 2 grant award. So if the committee would turn to page 6, please. For fiscal year 2022, staff has laid out in the motion for you, which staff will read, the recommendations to account for adding to the base budget Year 2 grant funds of $110,000. So the motion, if the committee wishes to accept and include in the budget the Year 2 grant funding, is for fiscal year 2022, do the committees wish to approve the technical adjustments recommended by staff that, 1, add private grant revenue and expenditure authority in the base budget to reflect receipt of the Year 2 grant award, 2, eliminate the governor's recommendation to eliminate expiring grant funding, which was Decision Unit E490, and 3, eliminate general fund appropriations, which is in E225 totaling $101,356 in fiscal year 2022. For fiscal year 2023, however, do the committees wish to approve the governor's recommendation to eliminate the expiring grant funding and replace it with general fund appropriations of $102,020? If the committees approve general fund appropriations for fiscal year 2023, do the committees wish to issue a letter of intent directing that in the event that an unexpended balance of Year 2 grant funding is available in fiscal year 2023, the agency should reserve for reversion an equal amount of fiscal year 2023 general fund appropriations? Likewise, if the Office of for New Americans is successful in obtaining a Year 3 grant award, the office should also reserve for reversion general fund appropriations based upon the effective date of the Year 3 grant budget period.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hartz. This one is a little bit complicated because you've actually got an eliminate of the elimination in there. So it's reading kind of crazy. So I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to ask any questions on this one. This office, I think, did a great job over the interim, stepping up. They started when things started. They were just pulling it all together when things were starting to fall apart, and they did a lot of good work last interim in helping folks. But the technicalities of how the grants come in versus the general fund, how the dollars move through the system. So I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page and gets a chance to ask any questions. Not seeing anyone wishing to ask a question. I believe we're good. Senator Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close the budget as recommended by staff.
Okay. I have a motion from Senator Brooks to close this budget as indicated by staff.
I second the motion.
Second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Are there any questions or comments on the motion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Thank you, Mr. Hartz. I believe we can now go to GOED, Governor's Office of Economic Development.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We have 11 Governor's Office of Economic Development budgets to be closed. The first is on page, and this is the Governor's Office of Economic Development budget 1526. This was heard on February 15th. The Governor's Office of Economic Development is tasked with diversifying and strengthening the state's economy. The office works with regional development authorities to achieve goals of the State Economic Development Plan, which focuses on immediate economic recovery and long-term resilience. There are two major closing issues in this budget account. The first is comprised of 2 decision units for budget reductions. The governor recommends general fund reductions totaling $960,353 over the upcoming biennium, comprised of decision unit E600, which eliminates a vacant position, and Decision Unit E680, which reduces travel costs and marketing and grants to regional development authorities. Regarding the travel and marketing reductions included in Decision Unit E680, the table on page 8 summarizes the reductions totaling $130,724 over the biennium. The agency anticipates that continuing in-state and out-of-state travel and marketing activities at reduced levels, and indicates that some travel needs have been replaced with virtual meetings. Regarding the grants to regional development authorities, Decision Unit E680 would reduce funding for these grants. However, Decision Unit E125, which is discussed in Major Closing Issue number 2, would add funding for these grants for a net increase of $191,600 per year, for total authority of $2.5 million per year after considering both decision units in this budget. And that's in comparison to $2.9 million in authority that was originally approved for the current biennium. And these were reduced during the 31st special session. Regarding the elimination of the vacant position, on April 1st, 2021, the joint committees took action to preliminarily approve authorizing positions that had been identified for either elimination or to be held vacant, to restore those positions effective October 1st with American Rescue Plan, Coronavirus State, and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. However, following the April 1st meeting, the Governor's Finance Office indicated that this vacant position was recommended for elimination, not as a budget reduction measure, but because it was no longer needed, because it was added in 2016 and had never been filled. As this position was included in the committee motion on April 1st as a budget reduction measure to be restored in October, the committee may wish to reconsider its original motion to restore this position when that issue is finalized in May. Do the committees wish to approve general fund reductions totaling $837,524 over the 2021 to 23 biennium to reduce in-state and out-of-state travel costs, advertising, and grants to regional development authorities in Decision Unit E680 as recommended by the Governor, and to eliminate a vacant non-classified position for general fund savings of $122,829 over the 2021 to 23 biennium as recommended by the Governor in Decision Unit E600, and reconsider the motion which was preliminarily approved on April 1st, 2021, to restore the elimination of the position and therefore not authorize American Rescue Plan, Coronavirus State, and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds to restore the position effective October 1st, 2021.
So committee members, are there any questions on this particular item? This is one of those positions that truly was meant to stay vacant, had never been filled. So we would pull it out of that large motion and just not fill it. So that's part of this one. Not seeing any questions or comments. So with that, I'd go to Chair Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close this item as indicated by staff.
Thank you very much. Ms. Monroe Moreno.
I second the motion.
I have a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Nay. One nay from Senator Kekeffer. So with that, motion passes. Moving on to the next portion. Ms. Ellsworth.
The next major closing issue is on page 10. This is budget restorations. The Governor recommends general fund appropriations of $621,674 in each year of the upcoming biennium to partially restore funding for grants to regional development authorities and to restore funding for costs related to consultants and economic analysis applications. following reductions pursuant to Assembly Bill 3 of the 31st special session. With this recommendation, accounting for the reductions included in the major closing issue 1, budgetary authority for grants to regional development authorities would total $5.1 million over the upcoming biennium, which represents a reduction of 13.5% compared to the $5.9 million that was previously approved for the 2019 to 21 biennium. The agency indicates that it relies on the regional development authorities to perform most of the work in assisting new and expanding companies, and indicates that they are essential to its success in bringing new high-paying jobs to the state. And without the recommended funding, the smaller regional development authorities, which have limited access to alternative fundings, may result in shutdowns without the additional funding that's recommended in Decision Unit E125. Regarding the economic research and analysis, Decision Unit E125 would add general fund appropriations of $76,674 per year. The table on page 12 summarizes the potential activities that comprise the total annual authority, including the recommended authority in the base budget of $298,803 per year. Do the committees wish to approve general fund appropriations of $1.2 million over the 2021 to 23 biennium to restore funding to support grants to regional development authorities of $1.1 million and economic research and analysis activities of $153,348? Excuse me.
Thank you, Ms. Ellsworth. So with that, committee members, are there any questions on this item? Senator Severs-Gansert?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm just for clarification, we were reducing funds, but now we're adding them back in a different decision unit. So what's the net?
I believe overall it is still a 13.5% reduction.
So I saw that, but is that in total? Is that the 5.1 versus the 5.9 million?
It's my understanding. Ms.
Yes,
Ellsworth, go
that's-
ahead.
Yes, Kimbra Ellsworth, I apologize, Fiscal Analysis Division. Yes, so the net effect would be 5.1 million, including all decision units in the budget for the.
Okay, thank you, because the way it's laid out, it's a bit confusing because we're reducing and then we're adding, and then we're going to go back and we're going to add some more money for consulting. And so does that 5.1 include the money that, the roughly 300,000 that's going to be added back for consulting?
No, that is separate. So within Decision Unit E125, sorry, Kimbra Ellsworth for the record, Fiscal Analysis Division. This also includes $76,674 per year for the economic research and analysis activities.
I guess when I'm looking at economic research and analysis, I'm seeing 300,000 per year in the upcoming biennium, not 76. Maybe I'm.
Yes, so the 300,000 is including the amount that it's already in the base budget. So this decision unit, E125 would add that roughly 77,000 per year to come to a total authority of 298,800.
Thank you.
Thank you. Majority Leader?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the ability to make a comment, Madam Chair. And so just this is on the contracts out, the $300,000, and I appreciate the level of detail that we're getting on the contracts because we don't often see exactly where prospective contracts might lie with vendors. The only thing that I would urge that we've seen this session and is an emerging trend is consideration around when we do work with contractors and who owns the work product, copyright issues, and the right to republish. And so I just want to make sure I'm urging, and we'll probably say this in a number of different times, that whenever we're contracting out work product, that those contracts clearly state that although the work might be copyrighted, that we have ownership of that and we have the ability to use that as a state and to republish it without any violations of that copyright. Otherwise, we're essentially paying for a work product that we never own and can't use in the way that we want, which I think would be an unwise use of public dollars. So I'd like that always to be held in consideration when you're looking at these different contracting projects.
Thank you. Dr. Titus?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question, I was concerned when we heard this budget initially, although I want to put on record that I'm supportive of rural development and where these programs are going, and I do appreciate that and the breakdown of how these grants were applied. I was just concerned that during the original testimony and then again today, we're actually increasing the money we're going to give to consultants and economic analysis, but we're actually decreasing the amount of grants that we're awarding. So I have some concerns regarding that amount and why are we decreasing the actual grants and more of it's going into, again, more studies or consultants as opposed to getting into the community. So could you clarify that for me, please?
It's Kimber Ellsworth, Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Yes, so the during the 31st special session, both of these expenditure categories were reduced. So this recommendation included in Decision Unit E125 would restore the funding allocated to the economic research activities back to the level that it was previously approved for in the 2019-21 biennium. And again, since we had the first major issue in this budget that we reduced the funding for the grants to regional development authorities, we have, and also this was reduced during the 31st special session. The net effect is a reduction of 13.5% compared to the amount of 5.9 million for these grants that was previously approved by for the 2019-21 biennium. So the grants for regional development authorities with this budget restoration decision units, adding $545,000 per year would bring the total authority for these grants to 5.1 million over the biennium.
Okay.
So, authority for the grants is 13.5% lower than what was previously approved. So this is attempting to restore a portion of that.
Dr. Titus, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, again, thank you, Madam Chair, for the follow-up. I just, again, so to be clear, we are restoring some of the reduction to actual grant application, and we're also restoring, but we're making whole the analysis and the consultants. Is that correct? But only partially restoring the grants themselves?
It's my understanding that the action that we are about to take will restore everything that was cut in the special session. Am I correct, Ms. Ellsworth? Are we basically taking them back to square one?
With the exception of the grants to the regional development authorities. So this doesn't quite restore all of the cuts that were made during the 31st special session. So these will be 13.5% lower than what was originally approved during the current biennium.
Thank you for that clarification. Just to be clear, if there was more monies available for grants, we could always come back at a different time to award those grants, say during the interim or something, if we had more funds. Is that correct? I just always
I
worry
would
that
not want to go down that road at this time.
Great, thank you. I just always worry that we're spending more money doing studies than we are getting it to where it needs to go. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions. Thank you.
I think we want to be very careful about talking about what we want to do in the future as we move through this, because we really don't know where we are right now and don't want to give people false hopes on things, because we know what we're facing in the state at this moment in time. So, Ms. Benitez Thompson, for a second.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'm just wondering on the regional development authorities, we know that we have one area in the state that is really suffering with unemployment in a way that the rest of the state isn't. And so I'm just this is probably a question that should have been considered during the hearing. But I won't ask a question. I guess I'll just make a statement for the record is, it would seem to me that with these regional development authority amounts that it would make more sense to, make sure that the resources are going where the resources are needed in a way that is reflective of our unemployment rates. Kind of the concept of making sure that if you've got someone in the room who's really short of oxygen, that we could flood the room with oxygen, or we could just give that person the oxygen and make sure that we're being more specific in how we address it. And so I don't have a look back to look at what the RDA numbers were in last session, what their methodology is. We obviously just kind of give these grants out. They're not performance-based or anything like that, but it would make more sense sometimes to have some more metrics around these. If that exists internally, then I think sharing that with us on paper would just be fine.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this, Senator Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I had that same line of questioning in the hearing as Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson just did. And Mr. Potts was able to really clarify for me why it is allocated in the way that it is allocated. And I did notice that he was on there if we have time, and that would be helpful.
Ms. Benitez Thompson, would you like me to have Mr. Potts come on?
I appreciate that, and I appreciate that, Senator Brooks. I've got my pinks here with so many notes. I take copious notes and annotate everything during session, and for some reason I had the question mark there, so either I took a brain break for 5 seconds and floated away, or I referenced myself to another reference that I just didn't pull. I think it's fine, like I said, if there's an internal process that's already existing, then that I just need to have put in my hands, then that's sufficient.
I'm going to go ahead and ask you've piqued the curiosity of a number of members of the committee, I can tell by looking at them. So I'm going to go ahead and ask if Mr. Potts is available to go ahead and come on. And please just give us if you could just address this for the committee, thank you.
So for the record, Bob Potts with the Governor's Office of Economic Development. It's great to be here with the committee. There is a fairly robust procedure that we go through as far as allocating the dollars to the RDAs that are made available to us through the general fund. The way that we've established it right now, prior to the pandemic, we were about $55,000 a year per county is the way that it was set up, and then it was based on a population distribution on the balance over and above that. So we always made sure that the urban areas above the 55,000 were recognized for the amount of population that those RDAs had to serve. The other reason that we did this is to encourage counties to get together to work as regional authorities. If you think about how regional economies work, they're seldom confined by political boundaries on counties. So this is a way to get the counties to work together that are in these regional economies. And so it was like 55,000 per county. Those numbers went down to about 50,000 per county with budget cutbacks. And then we, again, went on to redistricting over and above that amount to fairly reflect those higher population density regions. So hope that answers your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Potts. I believe you enlightened a couple of folks, so I think we're good. I don't see any follow-up questions at this time on that particular issue. Committee members, are there any other questions on this budget item? I'm not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. Chair Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve additional general fund appropriations of $1.2 million over the 21-23 biennium to restore funding to support grants to regional development authorities and economic research and analysis activities.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks,
I will second the motion.
a second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. We can move on to the next item, please.
Okay, Kimber Ellsworth, Fiscal Analysis Division. On page 12, we have beginning on page 12, we have three other closing items. The third is a base salary technical adjustment. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 and 2 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 3 be closed with the noted technical adjustments, and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Not seeing any questions. Senator Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close these items as recommended by staff.
Have a motion from Senator Brooks,
I second the motion.
second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Moving on to the next item.
Okay, the next budget begins on page 15. This is the Nevada Main Street program. This was created to provide state-level coordination with the National Main Street Center, which promotes a holistic approach to Main Street revitalization that involves aesthetic, business creation or retention, and housing that will lead to healthy and economically vibrant communities. There is one major closing issue in this budget. The governor recommends net general fund appropriations of $175,000 over the upcoming biennium to establish ongoing funding in the executive budget for the Nevada Main Street program. This program had previously been funded through one-shot general fund appropriations as opposed to being included in the executive budget. Decision Unit E350 adds general fund appropriations of $391,484, and Decision Unit E686 reduces general fund appropriations by $216,484 for the net funding of $175,000 over the biennium. The recommended funding for the upcoming biennium will be leveraged with matching funds. According to the agency, all grants must be matched with a minimum of 20% from the recipient for the total project costs. And the agency indicates that the anticipated economic benefits include downtown revitalization that leads to private investment, job creation or retention, new or expanded businesses, and a stronger tax base in the state. The agency explained during the February 15th budget hearing that it is focused on growing the program since its inception in fiscal year 2018. And the agency does anticipate fully expending the recommended general fund appropriations of $175,000 over the upcoming biennium. Because the recommended appropriations would be included in the executive budget, fiscal staff recommends the inclusion of back language in the 2021 Appropriations Act to allow for any unexpended appropriations in the Nevada Main Street program budget at the end of fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023 to be carried forward in the subsequent fiscal years. Do the committees wish to approve decision units E350 and E686 as recommended by the governor for net general fund appropriations of $175,000 over the 2021 to 23 biennium to support the Nevada Main Street program, and approve language in the 2021 Appropriations Act to allow unexpended appropriations in the Nevada Main Street program budget to be carried forward to the subsequent fiscal year, and provide authority for fiscal staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
With that, committee members, are there any questions? This one will now, instead of being a one-shot, will actually be part of the ongoing budget. I'm sure former Assemblywoman Swank would be very happy right now, and she may even be listening. If you are, we miss you. It is not as much as I think a lot of folks would have hoped, but it is a start, and it does do, they have come back and shown us some of the work that they have accomplished. So do I have any questions or comments from anyone on the committee at this time? Not seeing any. I would go to Chair Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close these items with authority to make technical adjustments as necessary, as recommended by fiscal staff.
Thank you.
I will second the motion.
The second from Ms. Monroe Moreno to close as indicated by staff with the authority to make technical adjustments as necessary. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Not hearing any opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. We can go on to the Nevada Film Office, please.
Thank you. Kimber Ellsworth, Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. On page 19, we have the Nevada Film Office budget. The mission of the Nevada Film Office is to proactively promote, pursue, and facilitate the production of motion pictures and all other forms of media projects utilizing Nevada locations, vendors, services, crew, personnel, and performance talent. The major closing issue in this budget is reduced revenue and expenditures. Due to anticipated continued declines in revenues, the governor recommends reducing operating costs by $17,541 in each year of the upcoming biennium, included in Decision Unit E-126. Through this decision unit, the governor recommends reducing costs for the production and printing of the Nevada Production Directory, eliminating transferred funds of $7,500 per year to the GOED budget, and reducing revenue from the Nevada Production Directory. During the February 15th budget hearing, the agency indicated that a fully digital Nevada Production Directory would allow for more flexibility in offering online advertising to customers as opposed to the print advertisements that are phased out. The agency indicated in response to follow-up questions that the digital directory has the ability to add advertising options to begin offering more online advertising, but this comes at an additional cost. The agency anticipates online advertising will ultimately replace previous printed advertising. However, no additional revenue is anticipated at this time, and revenue may decline until digital advertising is fully established, according to the agency. Given the reduced revenue in the upcoming biennium, the agency anticipates relying primarily on the operation of the website, social media platforms, in-office created content, and outreach, with minimal travel and marketing to continue promoting film production in the state. As noted previously, Decision Unit E-126 eliminates transferred funds of $7,500 per year to the GOED budget, which is historically funded with the room tax revenue transferred in from the Commission on Tourism. However, the decision unit inadvertently reduces a corresponding amount of revenue from the Nevada Production Directory. So fiscal staff included a technical adjustment on the first page of this closing document to correct the revenue source associated with the transfer to the GOED budget, replacing the reduction in revenue from the Nevada Production Directory with a reduction in the room tax revenue transferred from the Commission on Tourism. Do the committees wish to approve reduced revenue and expenditures in the Nevada Film Office budget, including annual reductions of $17,541 in Decision Unit E-126 with the noted technical adjustments?
Committee members, are there any questions from anyone at this time? Not seeing any questions. Chair Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we accept the recommendations of staff as indicated by staff.
So Senator Brooks has moved to close this item as indicated by staff. I have a second from?
I second the motion.
Second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Are there any questions or comments on the motion? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Moving on to workforce innovations. I'm sorry, I believe there was one more. I got half a step ahead of you. Go ahead, Ms. Ellsworth.
Yes, thank you. So we have two other closing items on page 22. The second is a technical adjustment to correct the base revenue amounts to align the Nevada Film Production Directory revenue and the room tax revenue in the base budget. Fiscal staff recommends other closing item 1 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing item 2 be closed with the noted technical adjustments, and request authority to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Questions or comments? Seeing none. Chair Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close these items as indicated by staff.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Brooks, second.
A second?
From Ms. Monroe Moreno. Questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Now we can go to workforce innovations. Thank you very much, Ms. Ellsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 23, we have the workforce innovations for a new Nevada account. Funds in this account can be used to develop and implement programs to provide customized workforce development services to companies that create, expand, and relocate businesses in the state. The major closing issue in this account is continuation of the funding for the WIN program. Decision Unit E125 transfers in $2 million in federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act grant funds from the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation. And Decision Unit E680 reduces general fund appropriations by $500,000 for net general fund appropriations of $1.5 million in fiscal year 2022. In this account, any remaining balance in the budget at the end of an even numbered fiscal year may balance forward to the next fiscal year pursuant to NRS 231.151. Therefore, any remaining balance in fiscal year 2022 may be carried forward to fund WIN projects in fiscal year 2023. According to the 2021 Workforce Development Report, a total of 19 projects have been approved for WIN funding since 2016. The agency has identified potential WIN projects that may be funded in the upcoming biennium, totaling $3.5 million. And these are shown in the table on page 25 of your packet. In response to questions following the February 15th budget hearing, the agency indicated that in addition to the job training provided to 1,958 Nevadans since the inception of the program, the state investments in WIN projects have resulted in 1,350 new annual skill training seats, 1,297 credentials obtained, and 1,240 reported employment outcomes, with an reported average wage of $21.67. The agency anticipates reverting $3.1 million of the $4 million general fund appropriation that was approved for the 2019 to 21 biennium. However, the agency indicated that this reversion amount is attributable to the circumstances and slowdown in activities associated with the pandemic, and anticipates a turnaround in the upcoming biennium due to emerging economic development projects. Regarding the grant funding to be subgranted from DETR recommended in Decision Unit E125, the DETR workforce development budget does not include a corresponding transfer of funds to this budget in fiscal year 2022. While the agency indicated that DETR has expressed its intent and provided informal approval for the federal grant funds, DETR indicates that the funding is not guaranteed and is subject to federal funding levels and discretion of the governor. Based on the uncertainty regarding the award of grant funds for the upcoming biennium, the committee may wish to not approve Decision Unit E125 and direct the agency to approach the Interim Finance Committee when the formal grant award is received from DETR. As noted previously, in even-numbered fiscal years pursuant to statute, funds may be balanced forward. However, because this budget is included in the executive budget, fiscal staff recommends the inclusion of back language in the Appropriations Act to allow for any unexpended appropriations in the WIN budget at the end of fiscal year 2022 to be carried forward to fiscal year 2023, with remaining funds reverting at the end of fiscal year 2023. And on page 26, we have the decision for the committee. Do the committees wish to approve Decision Unit E680 as recommended by the governor including net general fund appropriations of 1.5 million in fiscal year 2022 to support workforce development projects over the upcoming biennium, and not approve decision unit E125, and instead direct the agency to seek approval from the Interim Finance Committee when a formal award for federal grant funds is received, and approve language in the 2021 Appropriations Act to allow for unexpended general funds to be carried forward from fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2023, and provide authority for fiscal staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Right, committee members, with this, I will only speak for myself. I look at this as, I know we're supportive of workforce, but this is really more about a timing issue than rather denying an actual request. We want to make sure that it is what it is when it comes to us, so that we're voting on the most current information, and they would be allowed to come back to IFC, which I am not chairing this interim, to make the have the conversation about the funding. So this really is more about timing than anything else. It's not as though we're actually denying a request. We just want to process it at the appropriate time. So are there any questions on this particular item? Not seeing any. Senator Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve as described by fiscal staff with authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
I have a motion from Chair Brooks.
I'll second the motion.
A second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing none. Passes unanimously of the members present. Wow, these voice votes really do go nice and quick, don't they? Wow. Yeah. Okay, so with that, Nevada Knowledge Account, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth, Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. On page 27, we have the Nevada Knowledge Account. The purpose of the Knowledge Account is to spur research and commercialization of that research in areas in which the state has targeted for economic growth, to create high-paying jobs, and generate tax revenue. The major closing issue in this budget is continuation of the Knowledge Account funding. The governor recommends general fund appropriations of $2.5 million in each year of the upcoming biennium to support Knowledge Account grant projects. The Knowledge Account provides research grants of money to UNR, UNLV, and the Desert Research Institute to support commercialization and technology transfer to the private sector. The agency provided a list of the potential Knowledge Account grant projects that may be funded in the upcoming biennium, totaling $5 million, shown in the table on page 28. And on page 30, we have a table that was included in the highlight during the budget hearing that shows the return on investments on the general funds that have been appropriated to the Knowledge Account since its inception. The agency indicated that almost every Knowledge Account sponsored project has successfully leveraged either federal dollars or attracted industry contracts. The agency also indicated that there is a benefit to the state general fund through increased tax revenues generated as a result of the projects that are funded, and other benefits such as an increase in sponsored research for NSHE and an increase in high skill jobs and workers in the state. Following the February 15th budget hearing, in response to questions concerning commercialization revenue, the agency explained that while statute does enable commercialization revenue to be shared with the state, the scenario of a material amount of revenue being deposited back into the Knowledge Account budget is unlikely. And the agency also explained that governmental support for innovation programs such as the Knowledge Account is typically perpetual in nature, and self-sufficiency of the account is not projected at this time. on page 31, we have the decision for the,
Ms. Ellsworth, if I could stop you here, I think there's going to be some conversation on this one, so I'd like to be able to have the conversation, and we'll go from there. Thank you very much. So with that, we'll go ahead and open it up. Ms. Benitez Thompson, did you have a comment?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I appreciate that, and I think that we've put a lot on the record in the 2013 session, 15 session, 17 session, and last session. And so I still feel most comfortable with the decision and the funding level that we put in place last session. It just feels like with everything that we're doing across all budgets that it makes the most sense it's a win to keep the status quo, or it's a win to restore cuts that we made in the special session, and that trying to go above and beyond that funding for any particular program right now just doesn't seem prudent with what we're doing in other places in the budget. So I guess that's the comment I have.
So just to clarify for the committee, for those that might not be aware, the last session we did and I would love to be corrected by staff if I state this incorrectly, we did 2.5 million in the first year, and that 2.5 million was for both years. It wasn't for each year. It was 2.5 million at the beginning of the biennium, and the money was allowed to roll forward into the second year of the biennium. So I believe that's what Ms. Benitez Thompson was indicating. So I just want to make sure that that was clear for the record. Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Some of these horrible cuts that we're having to make are as a result of having an economy that is based on one industry for the most part, and over those years, as indicated by the Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson, we've had these conversations about diversifying our economy. Why do we find ourselves in this situation every time there's a downturn? And as a result of that, the recommended budget in 2019 for this knowledge account, which is successful by all metrics that you can measure success, and so the governor's recommended budget for this knowledge account was $10 million in the biennium. And they, because of the actions that we all took in the 2019 legislature, ended up with the 2.5 million that you reference. And so while this is an increase from that, it doesn't even begin to get us to where this account was recommended to be or should be. And so diversification of our economy is really the only way we're going to get out of this mess, and this is a key component to helping us do that. So that's why I'm supportive of the governor's recommended 2.5 in each year, as well as more in future years and when future monies become available. But I just think this is incredibly important for the diversification of our economy.
And I appreciate the comments, Senator Brooks. We know that there's a lot of very important things in this state right now that are having to absorb a 6%, 10%, 13, possibly 15% cut, and there's conversations about some programs not even moving forward. So this is definitely a very tough balancing act that we've all been asked to do because of just not knowing where we are. And I did appreciate all the conversation that we had in the committee about the commercialization and the dollars coming back. I honestly believe there might be some indirect dollars there somewhere that should be used to help offset some of these, but that'll be for another set of legislators to work on in the future. I totally understand the diversification issue, but when we're looking at some of the other cuts that we're going to be facing over the next couple of weeks as we close these budgets, we all have to weigh them appropriately. Senator Kickover?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I also, in following up to Vice Chair Brooks's comments, really see this account as an investment in higher education, aside from just workforce development and diversification. And if we hope to retain R1 status for UNLV and UNR, these dollars being used to leverage federal drawdown of sponsored research is critical. And I believe that it makes sense to not just support the governor's recommendation to put $2.5 million in each year of the biennium on this, but look for ways to expand that going forward. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments at this time? Senator Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I've watched this particular fund since its inception, back I think it was 2011, I've also noticed we kind of patterned it after our neighbors in Utah who have been doing this longer. And what I saw there was that there is actually revenue, they've become I think either the first or second most diverse economy in the country, which is I think what we're trying to get to. And so I see this investment here as something that we need to, it's a long-term investment. And I get that we're going to have to make cuts in things, but I think at the same time, we also have to look to the future on how we can stabilize our economy. And this is one of those things that I think can help with that. So I'm real supportive of the successes that we've seen in this program.
And thank you, Senator. And I don't think the debate is about the success of this. I think the conversation is centered more about how we make sure that the dollars support the families who are most in need right now, but still, there was a saying in the last fiscal crisis, is save the seeds. Farmers never eat the seeds. You always save those because you want to be able to grow a program again. You never want to totally devastate a program. So being able to keep it moving forward is really, when you consider some of the cuts and the situations that we are in right now, really is almost a win in some ways by not going backwards, by staying status quo. So I don't believe this will be the last day that we have this conversation because I can read the writing on the wall. So with that, are there any other questions or comments on this particular item at this time? I don't believe so. So I would go to Vice Chair Monroe Moreno for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make the motion for the Knowledge Fund to be approved at the $2.5 million in FY22 only, and that the carryover can be forwarded to FY 2023 if the remaining funds are available.
We have a motion from Ms. Monroe Moreno, a second from Ms. Benitez Thompson. Questions or comments on the motion? Already had some discussion. Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate what all the arguments that were made, but unfortunately, I'll have to be a no on that motion. And so hopefully we can kind of get to a place of maybe with new information, but get to a place of agreement later when we close this reconcile.
Thank you. So with that, committee members, not seeing any other questions or comments, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? Nay. So if I could please have the nays raise their hand. So it fails in the Senate, unanimously across the Senate. And we have 4 noes in the Assembly: Mr. Hafen, Mr. Levitt, Mr. Roberts, and Dr. Titus. So the motion passes. And we will go to budget differences closing because the Senate went one way and we went another way, so there is no resolution on this item. So with that, it'll be one of the items that we take up when we do budget resolution closings. Okay, is everyone understand exactly what we just did? I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Okay, all good? With that, moving on.
Okay. Kimber Ellsworth, Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Madam Chair, I will now begin presenting the budgets which the committee has not previously reviewed for the Governor's Office of Economic Development and for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations. I will pause following my presentation of each budget to allow for questions. When I have presented the last budget in this group and questions have been addressed, the chair may wish to ask for a single motion for closing consideration on all of the budgets for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations. On page 33, we have the Small Business Enterprise Loan Budget 1524. Through Senate Bill 126, the 2017 legislature appropriated general funds of $1 million to establish the Small Business Enterprise Loan Account to support a program under which a small business, minority-owned business, women-owned business, or disadvantaged business enterprise may obtain a loan to finance the expansion of its business in Nevada. This is a revolving loan account and money does not revert. There are no major closing issues in this budget, and there are no other closing items in this budget. Closing recommendations for this budget are included in the summary page in the closing packet.
Are there any
We don't have any
questions? Oh, thank you, Ms. Ellsworth. We're going to stop for questions at each one, and then we'll do the large motion at the very end on the summary page. So are there any questions from committee members on this particular item? Not seeing any, we can go ahead and move on to the Unmanned Systems Safety Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kimber Ellsworth, Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for this budget. The committee has not previously reviewed this budget. Through the passage of Senate Bill 421, the 2019 legislature approved general fund appropriations of $1 million to the Governor's Office of Economic Development in fiscal year 2020 to carry out a program to facilitate the growth and safe integration of small unmanned aircraft systems in Nevada. The governor does not recommend funding for this budget in the 2021 to 23 biennium. There are no major closing issues and there are no other closing items. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet.
Committee members, any questions on this item? Senator Severs-Ganser.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to know if there's a report available for how that money was spent and what progress they made on that front for unmanned, for drones, basically aircraft system. If we can get that, thank you.
Okay. I will, Kimber Ellsworth, Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. I will share that the agency did expend $720,000 in fiscal year 2020 and reverted the remaining $280,000 pursuant to the fiscal year 2020 measures that were approved in June of 2020 by the IFC.
Thank you. I understand that. I was wondering if there was a report on how that money was spent and any metrics based on the $1 million that I know they didn't spend it all, but maybe we could follow up with them to see how they utilize those funds.
Senator, we can have
Thank
staff
you.
follow up with them and get that information and provide it to the committee and make sure all committee members get it. Okay? Thank you.
If we have no other questions, I'll move on to the next budget, Rural Community Development on page 37. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for this budget. The committee has not previously reviewed this budget. The Rural Community Development Program administers the state's Community Development Block Grant Program on behalf of small cities and rural counties in Nevada to develop viable rural communities by assisting with the provision of suitable living environments, expanded economic opportunities, and adequate housing. The budget is primarily funded with federal grants from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and supplemented by general fund appropriations. The total recommended funding for the program is $3.3 million in each fiscal year of the upcoming biennium, including $314,493 in general fund support over the biennium. There are no major closing issues in this budget. There are 3 other closing items. Other closing item 3 includes a base salary technical adjustment. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet.
Committee members, are there any questions on this particular budget? Not seeing anyone. Please proceed, Ms. Ellsworth.
Thank you. next budget is on page 39. This is the procurement outreach program. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for this budget. The committee has not previously reviewed this budget. The procurement outreach program assists Nevada businesses in obtaining federal government contracts by alerting them to procurement opportunities and providing training and technical assistance to be competitive in federal procurement processes. The budget is funded primarily with federal funds from the U.S. Department of Defense and general fund appropriations, with federal funds capped at $600,000 per year for the program. The governor recommends total funding of $1.4 million over the biennium, including general fund support of $243,673 over the 2021 to 23 biennium. There are no major closing issues in this budget. There are 2 other closing items. Other closing item 2 includes a base salary technical adjustment. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet.
Are there any questions on this particular budget? Seeing none, we can go ahead and move on, Ms. Ellsworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next budget is the Nevada Catalyst account. This is on page 41 of your packet. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for this budget. The committee has not previously reviewed this budget. The Catalyst account, created by the 2011 legislature, is intended to enable the provision of grants or loans to incentivize the expansion or relocation of businesses that will quickly result in the creation of high-quality jobs in Nevada. Through the passage of Senate Bill 507, the 2015 legislature authorized the Board of Economic Development and the executive director of GOED to approve transferable tax credits to new or expanding businesses in Nevada to promote economic development in the state, rather than issuing grants through the Catalyst account. The 2019 legislature approved language in the 2019 Authorizations Act directing the agency to revert the remaining unobligated funding, totaling $3 million to the general fund at the end of fiscal year 2019, and $462,500 was approved by the 2019 legislature for Catalyst account grants in fiscal year 21, 70,000 of which has been dispersed as of April 7th, 2021. The obligated balance of $392,500 is currently anticipated to be carried forward from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2022 via work program to fulfill the remaining obligations under previously approved agreements. Closing recommendations for this budget are included in the summary page in this closing packet.
Are there questions from the committee on this particular item? If you'll notice, there's a description under the additional information about the dollars that are still there, that they're currently obligated, and that they anticipated to be, the carry forward will go on, so any monies that have been obligated will continue. Not seeing any questions on anything at this time. We can go ahead and move on to the next item.
Okay, thank you. Kimber Ellsworth, Fiscal Analysis Division. The next budget is on page 43. This is the Nevada State Small Business Credit Initiative budget. The Small Business Jobs Act of 2010 created the State Small Business Credit Initiative and appropriated funds to states to support programs designed to increase access to credit for small businesses and small manufacturers. In 2017, the U.S. Treasury transferred the federal funds associated with the program to state ownership. The program is currently funded with the remaining funds, small business loan repayment, and nominal amounts from interest earnings and filing fees. There are no major closing issues in this budget, and there are no major closing items. Closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet.
Committee members, are there any questions on this particular budget? Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized at this time. Ms. Ellsworth, would you walk us through the summary of all the staff closed budgets, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On page 45, we have the summary for the staff closed budgets. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations for the following budgets. To assist with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budgets that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor, along with identified technical adjustments that are recommended below. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budgets be closed as recommended by the governor with the noted technical adjustments and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. Budget 1521, GOED Nevada State Small Business Credit Initiative. Budget 1524, GOED Small Business Enterprise Loan. Budget 1528, GOED Rural Community Development, including a technical adjustment to align salary expenses with the fiscal year 2021 legislatively approved amount adjusted for the 3% increase approved over the 2019 to 21 biennium. Budget 1529, GOED Nevada Catalyst Account. Budget 1534, Unmanned System Safety Program. And GOED Budget 4867, Procurement Outreach Program, including a technical adjustment to align salary expenses with the fiscal year 2021 legislatively approved amount adjusted for the 3% increase approved over the 2019 to 21 biennium.
Committee members, are there any questions on any of the staff closed budgets as have been presented? Not seeing anyone wishing to be recognized. I will note for the record that Assemblywoman Tolles is present. So with that, Chair Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve those budgets as described by fiscal staff.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Brooks to close as indicated by staff. A second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Monroe Moreno. Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Next budget item is the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kathy Crockett, Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations for this budget. The committees have not previously reviewed this budget. The Tahoe Regional Planning Agency is formed through a bi-state compact between the state of California and the state of Nevada, and the agency provides a leadership and advocacy role in the regional cooperative efforts to preserve, restore, and enhance Lake Tahoe's unique natural and human environments. There are no major closing issues or other closing items, and fiscal staff recommends that the budget be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
It'd be really great if a conversation about this actually included a trip to the lake, but that's not going to happen today. So with that, committee members, are there any questions on the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency? No questions? No comments? All right. With that, I'll go to Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close this GovRec with technical adjustments as necessary.
Motion from Senator Brooks, second.
I'll second it.
Ms. Monroe Moreno, questions or comments on the motion? Senator Brooks.
Did you make a motion about going to the lake?
Yeah, I did, but.
I would second that as well.
I can't do that, so, with that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Hearing no opposition, passes unanimously of the members present. Committee members, great job. Staff, wonderful job on walking us through all these budgets this morning. We appreciate all of your hard work, especially in this situation. With that, I believe the only other item to come before the committee today is public comment. since there is no public in the room, we did have one request for one person to attend in person today, but maybe they got stuck at the metal detector. I don't know. So with that, do we have anyone for public comment? Broadcast services?
Chair, this is Michael from Broadcast. The public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Thank you very much, Michael. We appreciate that. So committee members, I believe our business for today is done. Thank you, Senate. We are adjourned.